place in my league. Got a blockbuster on the way and a pickup up my sleeve. They call my team insane, say I'm the one to beat. So you better bring your A game and start playing, cause every single...
Welcome to the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational Podcast. I am Justin Mason. I have another great episode for you today. I am joined by the 2021 overall champion Tanner Bell from smartfantasybaseball.com. You may know him from the book that he wrote with Jeff Zimmerman, The Process, which is a fantastic book. Highly recommend you go out and get it because he used that process to win the overall in TGFBI. It was a great conversation. Learned a lot because, Tanner made some mistakes, but still was able to overcome it. It was a great battle. Came down to the last day of the season for that overall championship. Definitely go give him a follow at Smart Fantasy BB. Go check out his site, which has a lot of great tools for sale, as well as The Process, the book that Tim Jefferson wrote over at smartfantasybaseball.com. Here is my interview with Tanner Bell, overall champion TGFBI in 2021. Joining me now is Tanner Bell of Smart Fantasy Baseball. Tanner, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
I think we have to start off with a congratulations, right? This is a mark to be celebrated. It is quite an achievement. You outlasted over 400 other people to win the title this season. So take a bow, take a victory lap, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. It was very unexpected. I had a little bit of a lead for a few weeks going into the end there, but I had actually thought that I had lost it. We were going back and forth at the very end there. Even as close to 1 hour left in the games, I was trailing. But then I got a couple lucky breaks. A semi and home run, Logan Webb's win, and Fulmer got a save for me. So
yeah, I mean,
I did not. It was crazy.
At one point, I think Jeff pointed out that there was like half a point between you guys on the last day. And that's insane how close it was to going either direction. And we're talking about Dylan White from Friends of Fantasy Benefits. He was the other competitor who was battling it out. But there were other people who had been involved late in the season. John Fernandez, who was a satellite winner, was involved at one point. I think Draft Sheet was involved at one point. This was a really, really tight race. Was there any move at the end that you made that you think kind of put you over the edge?
No, actually heading into that week, I was thinking I just needed to kind of protect in pretty much any category. So I just went into that last week with an even rounded, good starters. I only put in 2 closers. Nothing too crazy at the end there. I guess I did have a couple of late season pickups with like Lane Thomas, Schwindel, some of those guys, but in that last week, nothing too fancy. And I actually thought the decision to go with 2 closers was going to cost me because I sat Barlow from the Rangers, and he ended up getting 2 saves. I had McClanahan, and I was thinking, I put these 3 innings that McClanahan had and turned down 2 saves. That's going to cost me. But in the end, I think I got lucky that the Giants didn't clinch and they had to throw Webb that full game. He got me the win. I haven't run the numbers, but I'm not sure what would have happened if I didn't pull that win out.
Yeah, I think even if the Giants had clinched, though, they might have let him go deep just because their bullpen had been so taxed over the last week of the season.
Yeah,
but you definitely got you got a little insurance from them not clinching. I want to talk about your season as a whole, but I really want to start with your draft because I think a lot of times people go, well, if you have a bad draft, it's over. And not to say that you had a bad draft, but you had some things go extremely wrong at the beginning of your draft, right? You drafted Shane Bieber 9th overall. You drafted Marcell Ozuna 52nd. You did not get what you wanted out of 2 of your top 4 picks. Yet somehow you conquered everybody. So how did you overcome kind of those setbacks?
Yeah, when I was trying to reflect on that as well, yeah, it was Bieber, Ozuna, even Eddie Rosario in the eighth round didn't pan out very well, and I was in love with Andres Jimenez heading into this season as well, and he took him pretty early and didn't get much out of that at all. I think it was really that I did land a lot of other pitching, but even though I lost Bieber, so I had him for I can't remember how long it was, but let's say it was roughly half the season. In the second round, I had Woodruff, who really kind of stepped in and filled in that ace role once Bieber was gone. But I got pretty lucky on some of the other performances. Had Kevin Gausman. Later on, I had Nate Eovaldi, who I really was just kind of expecting maybe some wins, maybe strikeouts just because of volume, but he really outperformed what I was expecting. And then hit on a couple, well, not a couple, but I tried to take late shots on closers, and Jake McGee panned out real well for me. And I think so I had Hader early as well in the draft. So Hader and McGee, and then I think I landed Trevino pretty early in the season. And, I did a couple of other drafts this year with Jeff Zimmerman. We share a few teams, and we were chasing saves all year, and that really drained us. And I think being able to have 3 solidified closers really let me focus in on trying to gather other pitching as well. Because on those teams where I did not have solidified closers, it was just all year long trying to find saves, trotting out 3 guys and, some of those lesser closers from Pittsburgh, the Reds, just chasing that all year. But on this, being able to focus on pitchers, I also scooped up guys like McClanahan, Luis Garcia from the Astros, and then I picked up Webb, later in July when he came back up. So I think not having to chase those relievers and getting those saves locked in really helped.
I mean, I think that's a really good point, because I know for me in my TGFBI, on my TGFBI team, like closers were the bane of my existence. I drafted Trevor Rosenthal. I drafted Archie Bradley thinking he was going to be the closer. Drafted Nick Whitgren and Joe Jimenez. And I literally spent at least $900 of my $1,000 fab just chasing closers all season long.
Yeah, that's what we were doing on our main team as well. And we look back at the end, and if we had gotten better luck and ended up with more saves, and then also we were just short in wins and Ks at the end of the year too. But if you can find those saves, it helps you focus in on those other areas.
Absolutely. Will that make you more likely to go back to the well and draft like a 5th round, 4th round closer, like a Hader, like a Hendricks next season?
At least one. I definitely think you need at least one. The difference that it felt to not have to chase saves all the time was notable. I may again go too early, but and I haven't really started my draft prep for 2022 yet. So just off the cuff, I don't even know how many of those top tier closers there are going to be that are going to be worth pursuing. And that's maybe another thing to mention. A lot of my draft strategy really is, I'm a value-based drafter. So even if the value's not there, it may be hard to go after 2 of those closers that early. But I think getting one and then trying to roll the dice and figure out how to get other ones is still the way to go, probably when you're pursuing an overall competition like this.
I can tell you, having done my initial ranks for 2022 already, there is a cliff at the closer. It's gonna come quick for people. I don't think, especially with guys like Craig Kimbrell, guys like Raciel Iglesias, who are free agents. If you're doing early drafts this year, you're gonna be taking a lot of gambles that those guys are definitely locked in closers somewhere else, or other guys that are closers. There's a lot of free agents this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you talked about Logan Webb. Like, was he a guy that you had targeted early in the season? Because, I mean, you have some guys who really broke out. Obviously, it makes sense considering you won the thing. But you also, like, had, guys who you picked up that ended up playing huge roles. I mean, I see both Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez on your rosters.
Yeah.
And you didn't draft them. So you clearly were aggressive in fab. Like, what was your fab strategy coming into the season, and how did it all play out?
Yeah, I did not go too heavy on any one player. I think my biggest bid for anyone was around $70. I think I did that a couple times. I think that's how I landed Trevino early in the year, but I didn't go too big. None of the 2, 3, 400 on was it Jordan Romano or whoever we were going after early in the year. I kept it pretty controlled. And I think you're right. I did end up with Robert and Eloy. I ended up picking them up probably about 2 or 3 weeks before they came back. One of them I was pretty early on. I think I picked up Eloy first. And then I was kicking myself a little bit because right after I picked up Eloy, I remember there was a little bit of news rumbling that Robert might actually be the first one back. But I ended up being able to get Robert the next week too. So it was a little bit of a stretch to hold them both on my bench for a couple of weeks. But they were really what I needed to win. We talked about the pitching. That's really what got me out, in a big lead in my league and got me up and kind of high in the overall. And I was lacking offensive firepower, really. I was pretty weak. If you went into June or so and looked at the standings, I was pretty weak in runs, homers, and average. And I knew I was kind of going after the overall because I was in maybe the top 10 or 20 for most of the first half of the year. And then when we got about the halfway point, I started to focus on, okay, I need to maybe improve these offensive categories. So I took the shot on being a little early on those guys, and was able to hold them. And, Robert especially wasn't expecting his batting average, whatever it ended up being, to be that high, but he really helped me get my batting average back up to where I needed it to be.
Were you, I mean, you talked about, some of the guys that you ended up having to drop, guys like Andres Jimenez, another guy I was high on too that didn't work out. Were you like aggressive in cutting guys that just weren't working out, or are you more patient? Because I tend to find that I'm more patient myself, and I think that's a problem with a little bit of my, gameplay strategy.
Yeah, that's a really good question. If I looked back a few years, I was probably more of the HQ methodology of like extreme patience or whatever that phrase is. But I have gotten a lot more aggressive at being able to cut guys now. So it's hard to remember exactly where, but it was pretty clear early on that Jimenez, I can't even remember if Jimenez got hurt or whatnot, but I did not hang on to him too long. I think it was pretty clear he was either sharing time with Rosario or whatnot, and it just wasn't working out. So I was able to cut ties with him pretty early. But there were, I guess I have gotten pretty good at being aggressive and trying to be ahead of the curve, both in terms of picking up a guy and cutting a guy. In part of my background, I really try to think about valuations of guys. And when we do a lot of valuation thought, we're generally thinking about that in terms of season long. So if I look at the end of the year, what was this guy's value versus this guy? But one of the things that I dove into on the process, the book that I wrote with Jeff, was trying to break that thought process down more into weekly values. So it's a lot of work. I don't do it. I don't keep it up and check weekly values on players all the time any longer, but trying to shift the mindset of not just what a player's season-long value is, but what can this guy get me in the next week, in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks? If you start thinking in those smaller chunks, I really think that's what you have to do to, optimize your team. You could get in a trap of wanting to hang on to this guy that's going to get you $5 of season-long value, but he could definitely go through a month-long period where he's losing you value, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a kind of a different part of the game that maybe wasn't around when I first started playing. I mean, I did kind of grow up with the idea that, hey, like, you evaluated this talent, you think this of this player, like, don't give up on him. But our game has moved into kind of a, what are you doing for me right now kind of mode. And I think that's the right way to play. And I think, getting rid of guys who may not have been producing, like Jimenez. I'm assuming you dropped Anthony Santander early on in the season when he was getting hurt. Guys like Tony Gonsolin, not having to hold those guys on your roster gave you the flexibility to go after some of these huge pickups for you.
Yeah, and at the same time, I did have some rocks that really panned out, like McCutcheon, Crone. I even held Raimel Tapia, Kyle Seager, some of those guys I had all year, and I would kind of plug them in when they had good matchups and pull them out when they weren't. And that kind of goes along with that weekly mindset as well. I don't want to overstate that I'm a very short-term thinker. I think everything's about balance, right? Just not overthinking or overemphasizing season-long value, and not, like you said, there's some players you still have to practice the patience on and hang on to and wait for them to catch on.
What about guys like I really want to kind of ask you about your catcher strategy, because getting Sal Perez now in the 6th round.
I guess we kind of buried the lead on players that really helped me.
Yeah, well, because we could talk about Whit Merrifield, we could talk about Brandon Woodruff, like, they were great, but like, I don't think they necessarily super outperformed like there. But I mean, Sal Perez, getting a catcher who's going to play as many games as he did, hit 45 plus home runs, just be an absolute rock. Like, typically I'm a guy who kind of avoids drafting high catchers. But you took 2 catchers in your first 10 picks. Was that just you had them at better values than they were going, or is that a strategy you tend to like to employ?
Yeah, I am definitely. I'm a sucker for the dollar valuations, and I know there's a lot of debate on what a top tier catcher is worth. I think Perez, both Sal Perez and Vasquez ended up coming at big values for me there. But to be honest, a lot of that's a little bit of luck, because I would have been happy with any of the top 5 or 6 catchers. I can't remember who they all were, but coming into the season, Realmuto, Perez, Vasquez, Grandal, d'Arnaud, I think, Will Smith. There was that little package where I wanted to at least get one of those guys, and if 2 of them happened to fall or whatnot, I generally didn't seek out 2 of them, but sometimes we would get to this point in the draft where I would be like, I don't really like anyone else here anyway, so I might as well just take this catcher value or whatnot. But those catchers were largely interchangeable. I didn't seek out Perez necessarily, so he definitely lucked out a little bit on that there.
Yeah, I mean, Perez was one of those guys that coming in the season, I was like, I don't mind the draft price. I just can't imagine spending that much on a catcher. Oh man, I wish I had. What about? I want to go kind of to the opposite end of the spectrum. You drafted Jake McGee. You drafted in the 24th round to get that second closer who was just phenomenal. You drafted Anthony DeSclafani at pick 399 in 27th round. and then you get Logan Webb off of the waiver wire at some point in the season. Are you now a Giants fan? Because you should be.
I have Gaussman in there too.
Oh, that's right. I totally even missed Gaussman. He got in the 9th round. He was fantastic this year.
I didn't even really notice that, but yeah, that NL West, that park, they tend to pop in the projections a little bit for the ERA and the good matchups they're going to see. But yeah, wasn't necessarily targeting them.
Well, as a Giants fan myself, I approve, and I am now recruiting you to becoming a Giants fan for sure. So let's I want to congratulate you on winning. I mean, it is a huge feat. There's a ton of people. It's not an easy thing to do. You get to join the likes of Todd Zola and Clay Link. It's the really established guys in the industry that have gone on to kind of crush it and win this huge overall in TGFBI. What kind of comes next for you? I know you and Jeff wrote the book The Process, which I have purchased and read prior to this. Is there going to be an update of it? Are you guys going to kind of go on a national tour to kind of now shill this, because you took your process and made it work, and people. I don't know how many people know this. You actually drafted Jeff's team in mixed out against me, and he went on to just dominate that league as well. So it's clearly something about your guys' process and the book, The Process, that works.
Yeah, we do put out the book every year. We are already starting to work on another update to it. And it's not an overhaul every year. The core structure of the process stays in there, but we do add new strategy, new observations. We throw in updated steamer projections, standings, gains, point calculations. There's updates to it each year that we make. So we will be putting out a new edition in the next month or so here, but we called it The Process. It is literally our process that we do go through, and it's all the way takes you from what you need to do in draft prep all the way through managing a team all through the season, and it's what we do. And if we add something to our process, we try to write it into the book as well. So we're not really hiding anything. Anything that we're doing, we try to write into that book and make it available for people.
It's a fantastic book. Like I said, I bought it when you guys first released it. And I will definitely buy the updated version, because when you guys first released it, it was only on PDF, but now you guys have paperback, which is my preferred way to read things. So I'll definitely be a buyer once again. People should definitely be a buyer. Go to smartfantasybaseball.com and you can you find your way to ordering that. You also have a lot of really cool spreadsheet tools over there at smartfantasybaseball.com. Talk a little bit about those, because you do some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I'm not your typical analyst, I would say. I started on this endeavor in 2013. I didn't understand standings, gains, points myself, and I was just looking for a better way to prepare myself for the season and come up with my own rankings. I was in a little bit of a weird league that was different, and was looking for a set of instructions on how to tailor rankings and things for my own league. So I ended up just diving into spreadsheets, Excel, standings, gains, points, and just trying to figure all that out, lay out how I would do that for a custom league, and tailor your own set of rankings to what you need. And over time, I've just kind of built that spreadsheet and gotten it a little better every year, to the point now where I sell a couple of different things. One of them is a standings gains point spreadsheet where you could kind of take any of your favorite projections and move them into there. So whether you download the BAT or ATC or Steamer from Fangraphs, or if you want to get them from RotoWire or get them from Masters Ball, you can kind of take any set of projections, any one of the major sets like that, drop them in this Excel file, type in some of your league settings, and it'll really kind of automatically calculate player values for you. So I have that for Roto leagues. There's a similar one for points leagues. Same concepts there, that you could kind of download any projection set you're comfortable with and get tailored rankings for you. And those are really my favorite tools probably that I sell, because I think it makes it a lot easier and more accessible to folks that don't have a great Excel background and aren't really looking to build from the ground up. You can use these and kind of get there pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to grow my own Excel knowledge, but I may have to just purchase a couple of these from you and kind of skip the learning, because I've got other things I can be focusing on and let you kind of handle the
work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you have friends in the industry. Go support their work and kind of profit from it as well. Tanner, is there anything else you want to promote before I let you go?
No, you pretty much mentioned it. My own website is smartfantasybaseball.com. And the book that Jeff and I wrote, which we'll be putting an update out here pretty soon, is thefantasybaseballprocess.com. And that's me. Well,
Tanner, thank you so much for joining me. Definitely go and follow Tanner on Twitter at smartfantasybb. Go buy the process and go over to smartfantasybaseball.com and get some of these tools. They're so amazing, and you don't have to worry about being an Excel wizard yourself. That's what we have Tanner for in the industry. And good luck on repeating next year. I know I and 400 plus other people will be trying to take that title from you.
Thank you, Justin. And, before we go, I do want to say thank you for putting this on. I think it's a pretty amazing contest that you've kind of dreamt up and coordinated here. And I just like how it brings all of us different analysts and people from different websites, different backgrounds and experience levels within the industry together. And I like how you do that and end up giving money away to charity as well. So thanks for putting this on.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure, and I love that it's been a way to bring the industry together and get people that maybe aren't as well known a little bit more well known, and kind of give people exposure. I think you are a guy that is a bigger name in the industry, but I think this is also great for people who may not have ever heard of you or the process to see how good you are at this game and see how good other people are at the game. You mentioned charity. I totally forgot. Part of the prize of winning, not just the title of TGFBI overall champion, is there'll be some money donated to whatever charity you choose. So I don't know if you have a charity in mind or if you want to think about it and get back to me, but there will be money donated from the money we raised through TGFBI participants and satellite leagues to go to a charity of your choosing.
Oh, wow. I was not prepared for that, but yeah, let me think about that and get back to you.
All right. Well, we will announce that as soon as Tanner has come up with one. But if you want to take on Tanner and you are in the industry, you can do that. Go over to TGFBI.com. You can sign up for next year's TGFBI. There is a Google form on TGFBI.com. If you're not in the industry, you want to take him on. There was a guy, John Fernandez, who finished 3rd overall this year, who won a satellite league. So the way you get into those satellite leagues, go over to TGFBI.com and sign up for a satellite league, and I will send you more information here in the next few weeks on how you can get entered into those and win your way into TGFBI next year. So for Tanner and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.
First place in my league, got a blockbuster on the way, and a pickup on my sleeve. They call my team insane, say I'm the one to better bring your A game and start playing, cause every single week another win for me.
Yo, Commissioner, you can just pay me now. City win first place, then take a bow. Finish on top, I'ma set the standard. Don't believe me, you can check the standings. When I draft, I make smart selections. Got more sleepers than a narcoleptic. Meet your match, kid, my lineup's nasty. It's far-fetched thinking you might catch me. No surprise, I'm taking home the prize. Only time I rest is a playoff bye. Make amazing finds off the waiver wire all day and night. Better stay retired. See me in first, all proud and cozy. Bro, please, I can't even count my trophies. Bragging, even when my bats are slumping, I'ma pack a punch, stat track a junkie.
I'm the one they don't wanna play. First place in my league. Got a blockbuster on the way.